135th contact. Thursday, October 9, 1980, 7:44 p.m. Billy says this is but a short visit, Quetzal, if you want to go again before I'm actually right there. Quetzal says I have only taken a short walk and want to end it now. Manara waits for me a few hundred meters away with a herd of cows. We also have our ship in the vicinity there. Billy says, oh, I see, then you are probably the reason why the cattle are so restless up there on the southeastern slope of the forest. Quetzal says that may very well be, because Manara is with the cows, which have done this to her and with which she is gladly occupied. Billy says that too. Then be careful, however, when you go up there because Engelbert waits not too far from that place in his car. Your silvery raincoat just isn't good, despite this rainy darkness. Quetzal says that is of correctness, but I will be directed according to your words. Semyaza says you are both incorrigible. Quetzal says then I will go now. Until we meet again. Billy says bye, and greet Manara for me. Quetzal says I will do that. Billy says whoom. And away he goes. Quetzal is quite extensive, however, in disembarking. Semyaza says certainly, but now listen to what I have to tell you because I have a lot of work to do in the next few hours, so I only have a short time to talk today. Billy says your voice sounds so strange, as if something dreadful will happen again. I know this tone of yours already too well. Semyaza says certainly, it is as you say. But surely, you have already calculated these coming events long ago. Billy says unfortunately, I could not deal with the calculations lately for psychological reasons, so I do not know what event should now fall upon the earth again or upon any part of it. Semyaza says by way of insinuation, we once talked about this. Billy says but I do not remember at the moment. Semyaza says Allah's name. Billy says Allah's name, Allah's name. Oh, yes, this is the city in Algeria that should be destroyed by at least 80% as a result of an earthquake. I think, if I remember correctly, this should be in the autumn of this year. Semyaza says certainly. Tomorrow, during the midday hours, the inevitable will be fulfilled. Billy says and now you go back to the kidneys. I understand. It hits me again and again, even though I am actually far from the events. And when I consider that the main part of the people of the earth bears the guilt for these things, I could explode in anger. If I remember correctly, then it will crash again tomorrow so hard that roughly 100,000 people will die within just 30 seconds. Semyaza says unfortunately, that is the truth. It will be one of the strongest quakes to shake Algeria, as only seldom before. Billy says that, I do not know, but it will certainly be the case if you say so. Semyaza says and still, the earth-minded people will not become more thinking, especially not those who truly bear the guilt for this, namely the scientists and the governments. Billy says they deny their guilt, that is quite clear. They vehemently advocate the crazy assertion that it concerns purely natural processes. Only in Japan, the scientists seem to have become smarter, at least with regard to the whole climate change and the resulting air and land pollution. Semyaza says that is well known to me. Billy says and how does it stand with Iraq and Iran, which bloodily fight each other? Semyaza says this war between brothers will continue even further with unabated violence and will throw the whole world into a very bad crisis. And as I already told you before, there will be no real winner upon completion of the war, and in later years, more murderous and destructive wars will take place in Iraq by the fault of the Americans and the Iraqi dictator. Billy says I know that, but couldn't you also tell me something about the other upcoming events? Semyaza says today, the time is not sufficient, but I do want to inform you about the other events that are coming within the course of next week. Billy says that is dear of you. Semyaza says good, then I shall now explain the following to you. We've found that some of the group members are still of the wrong opinion that they can continue in their old and often deplorable errors at their own discretion. And they are still of the wrong opinion that we would watch these wrongdoings idly. But they are greatly mistaken about this. Therefore, I must urgently explain that we can no longer make ourselves uncertain in any way and that we can no longer exercise leniency. Our determination is given that every single group member residing in the center is to be intensively involved in the learning study and to pursue this study in cooperation with all who are present and or resident group members. We can, under no circumstances, accept that a group member separates and wants to pursue a worthless individual study. Only absences from the center, necessary and urgent work, and illnesses may be accepted as absences from the group study. But because this rule already has tough expectations, it has become imperative that we have early and ongoing tests with individual evaluations for each of the subjects to be learned, and on the 18th of October, so in 10 days, we are already calling for a test for every single group member in reference to the knowledge and personal exercises of the meditation. This form of test also applies to the law of love, which the group members presently have in the study, and this test will be scheduled either for the end of October or the beginning of November. The tests to come will be carried out with values in their results, such that at the end of the 12 months, averages can be calculated. For this, a minimum tolerance level for the values will be laid down in numerical points, from which the interests, efforts and initiatives of each group member in reference to the study can be calculated. Anyone who falls short of the values of the minimum tolerance level must be excluded from the core group and its interests, without the possibility of a return to the core group. A repetition of the previous test, which is scheduled by us in each case for the various subjects, can take place under no circumstances, so an already calculated value of a completed test is permanent. Billy says that is certainly clear enough, but explain to me again, who in this particular case is being addressed by your words that certain group members have already separated from the study? Semyaza says on the one hand, I spoke primarily of Connie, who has completely departed from the group study, but on the other hand, also of Eva and your wife, who repeatedly want to stay away from the group studies for futile reasons, with particular attention being given to your wife, with her stubbornness and grumbling, while Eva temporarily shows a certain apathy when she is tired. In other matters, several group members do not strive intensively enough with the necessary memory repetitions, as defined by us in condition. It must be said, however, that we cannot take their wrongdoings and negligence any more, as they cannot be excluded from the enlargement of the meditation, which should be carried out starting from November. Urgently, you should once again suggest to all that they learn the necessary, basic lessons in terms of the meditation and the law of love, in such a way that they can flawlessly repeat these until the test. An assessment will occur from this, just like from the test questions. Billy says the various excuses are always that they cannot memorize because they have no memory. Semyaza says we already talked about this once, and you know that this cannot be accepted by us because everything is just a mistaken idea and imagination, as we have already explained. And don't forget for the tests that except for Guido, all others are to be included and tested, not just those group members who reside in the center. In the particular case of Madeline and Ida, they should strive around the teaching in a more concentrative manner, which is urgently needed for them. In particular, Madeline has great learning difficulties because she focuses too little. It would be appropriate that you teach her separately every day for about 30 minutes so that she can also obtain the necessary knowledge. She is, indeed, very willing and interested to learn, but her will is not concentrated in such a way that she can take the necessary initiative for this. But for this additional work, you certainly need some more time, as I know, because you have other urgent work to do. For this reason, I would like it to be that you take the date of the 15th of October to begin to deal with this additional task. The same date should also apply to her meditation, since she believes that she can exclude herself completely